What happens when two beloved television personalities sit down for what should be a lighthearted chat, but instead find themselves in the middle of one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history? Today, we're breaking down the explosive interview between Kelly Clarkson and Valerie Bertinelli that ended with Valerie walking off set. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us whose side you're on in this situation. Because trust me, you're going to have opinions. The interview started innocently enough. Kelly welcomed Valerie onto the show with her signature warmth, the audience applauding as Valerie made her way to the guest chair. The energy seemed positive, friendly even. These were two women who had both navigated the pressures of being in the public eye from young ages, who had dealt with personal struggles that played out in the tabloids, who understood what it meant to be scrutinized and judged. Kelly opened with what seemed like a safe topic. So Valerie, you've been really open lately about your journey with self-acceptance and body image. I think that's so important, especially for women who grew up in this industry like we did. Valerie nodded, settling into her chair. Thank you, Kelly. Yes, it's been a long road. You know, I spent so many years hating what I saw in the mirror, comparing myself to impossible standards. I'm finally at a place where I can look at myself with kindness. The audience murmured supportively, and Kelly smiled. That's beautiful. And I think so many people relate to that struggle. I know I certainly do. The pressure in this industry is insane. It really is, Valerie agreed, especially for women. We're expected to look a certain way, act a certain way, never age, never gain weight, never be anything less than perfect. It's exhausting. Kelly leaned forward slightly. Absolutely. And you've talked about how your divorce played into that, how it affected your self-image and your relationship with food. Something shifted in Valerie's expression, just slightly. Well, divorce is hard on anyone. It makes you question everything about yourself. Of course, Kelly continued, but I think what you've said before is so powerful. About how you had to learn to stop blaming yourself for someone else's choices, right? That whole narrative about taking responsibility for your own healing. Valerie's smile became a bit more fixed. I think healing is complex, Kelly. It's not always as simple as just deciding to feel better about yourself. No, totally, Kelly said quickly. I just meant that. You know, you've been so vocal about the ways your ex-husband's behavior affected you, and I think that's brave. To speak your truth like that. The temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Valerie shifted in her seat. I've shared my experience, yes, but I've tried to do it in a way that focuses on my own journey, not on attacking anyone else. Kelly nodded enthusiastically, seemingly not picking up on the tension. Right, but I mean, you did write a whole book about it, and you've done interviews where you've been pretty direct about the emotional abuse, the infidelity, all of that. Valerie's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I wrote about my experience of my marriage. That's different from writing a book about someone else. Sure, but when you're married to someone, their actions are part of your story, Kelly pressed. And I think people appreciate that you've been so honest about what you went through. It helps other women feel less alone. I appreciate that people have connected with my story, Valerie said carefully. But there's a difference between sharing your truth and using your platform to publicly dissect someone else's character. Kelly laughed, a bit nervously. Well, I mean, if someone treats you badly, don't they kind of deserve to be called out? Isn't that what accountability is? The audience went quiet. Valerie took a visible breath. Accountability is important, but so is recognizing that there are two sides to every story, and that what happens in a marriage is complicated. I've tried to be thoughtful about that. But you literally said in an interview last month that you wasted years of your life. Kelly said, her tone still friendly, but with an edge creeping in. Those were your words. You said you gave up parts of yourself to make someone else happy, and that you regret it. Valerie's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Yes, I said that, because it's how I felt. But feeling like you lost yourself in a relationship and publicly attacking your ex-spouse are two different things, Kelly. I'm not saying you attacked anyone, Kelly said, holding up her hands. I'm just saying, you've been open about your experience, which is great. I'm all for women telling their stories. Are you? Valerie asked, her voice calm but pointed. Because it feels like you're trying to push me into saying something more inflammatory than what I've actually said. Kelly blinked, looking genuinely surprised. What? No, I'm asking you about things you've already talked about publicly. This isn't new information. The information isn't new, Valerie replied. But the framing is, you're painting me as someone who's been on a revenge tour, airing dirty laundry for attention. That's not what I've been doing. I never said that, Kelly protested. I think you're being a little defensive here. The audience was completely silent now, the tension palpable. Valerie stared at Kelly for a long moment. Defensive? That's an interesting word choice. I just mean, I'm on your side here, Kelly said, her smile strained. I'm trying to have a conversation about something you've chosen to make public. You're trying to get a soundbite, Valerie said quietly. You want me to trash my ex-husband on your show so you can have a viral moment. That's what this is really about. Kelly's expression hardened. That's not fair. I'm doing my job, which is to ask guests about their lives and their work. You came on this show knowing we'd talk about your book, your interviews, your public statements. If you didn't want to discuss it, you shouldn't have agreed to be here. I agreed to discuss my healing journey, Valerie shot back. Not to be baited into a Jerry Springer moment, the comparison hung in the air like a bomb. Kelly's face flushed. Wow, okay, that's incredibly insulting to me and to this show. Is it? Valerie asked, because right now, it feels like you're more interested in drama than in actual conversation. You keep pushing me to say something more extreme, more negative, more sensational. Why? Because that's what you've been doing in every other interview, Kelly said, her voice rising slightly. You've been on podcasts, you've been on morning shows, you've written op-eds, all talking about how terrible your marriage was. So forgive me for thinking you'd be willing to actually discuss it when you came on my show. Valerie stood up abruptly, and the audience gasped. There's a difference between discussing something thoughtfully and being backed into a corner on live television. I thought you of all people would understand that. Kelly, I thought you'd have some empathy given everything you've been through. Kelly stood as well, her professional composure cracking. Don't do that. Don't act like I'm attacking you when all I'm doing is asking you to stand by your own words. I am standing by my words, Valerie said, her voice shaking slightly. But I'm not going to let you twist them into something they're not. I've been careful about how I've talked about my past because I know my ex-husband is a real person with feelings, with a son who might read what I say, with a life that goes on beyond our relationship. I've tried to balance honesty with compassion. Kelly crossed her arms. So you're saying I'm not being compassionate. I'm saying you're being a journalist instead of a human being right now, Valerie replied. You're treating this like an interrogation instead of a conversation between two women who should understand each other. I understand you perfectly, Kelly said. What I don't understand is why you're so upset about being asked to elaborate on things you've already said publicly. You wrote a whole book about your life, Valerie. You went on a book tour. You did the media rounds. And now you're acting like it's inappropriate for me to ask you about it. It's not what you're asking, Valerie said, her voice tight. It's how you're asking it. You're not curious, Kelly. You're prosecutorial. There's a difference. Kelly let out a short laugh. Prosecutorial. That's dramatic, is it? Valerie challenged. Because from where I'm standing, you've been trying to corner me since the moment I sat down. Every question has been designed to get me to say something harsher, something more damning, something that will make headlines. That's not journalism, Kelly. That's exploitation. The audience was completely still, some people looking uncomfortable, others leaning forward with fascination. Kelly's producer could be seen in the wings, looking increasingly anxious. You know what? Kelly said, her professional veneer slipping further. I'm tired of celebrities coming on shows, using the platform to promote their projects, and then getting offended when we actually engage with the content of what they're selling. You can't have it both ways. You can't write a tell-all book and then get mad when someone asks you to tell all. I didn't write a tell-all book, Valerie said firmly. I wrote a memoir about my journey towards self-acceptance. Yes, my marriage is part of that story, but it's not the whole story, and I refuse to reduce decades of my life to just being about one relationship with one person. But that's what's selling your book, Kelly countered. Let's be honest here. Nobody would care about your self-acceptance journey if it didn't involve the scandal, the betrayal, all the juicy details about your famous ex. That's what people want to hear about. Valerie's face went pale, then flushed red. Is that what you really think? That the only thing interesting about me, about my life, about my experience, is my connection to someone else's drama? Kelly seemed to realize she'd gone too far, but she didn't back down. I'm just being realistic. I'm in this industry too, Valerie. I know how it works. You know how it works. We sell what people want to buy. So you admit that's what this is, Valerie said. You're trying to get me to sell out, to throw someone under the bus for ratings. You want me to give you something explosive so your show gets more views, more social media buzz, more attention. I want you to be authentic, Kelly said. I want you to be the same person you were on all those other shows, where you had no problem discussing your ex-husband's failings. What's different about my show? Why am I getting the sanitized version? Valerie took a step back, shaking her head slowly. You really don't see it, do you? You don't see the difference between having a genuine conversation about healing and pain, and being ambushed on live television. Ambushed. Kelly's voice rose. How is this an ambush? You knew what show you were coming on. You knew I'd ask about your book. This is literally what you signed up for. I signed up for an interview, Valerie said. Not a hit job. There's a reason I respected you, Kelly. I thought you were different from other talk show hosts. I thought you led with empathy, with kindness, with understanding. I thought you knew what it was like to have your personal life picked apart by the media. Kelly's expression turned cold. Don't you dare use my life to deflect from this conversation. I've been nothing but respectful to you. Respectful. Valerie's voice cracked. You've been needling me since I sat down. You've been trying to get me to lose my temper, to say something I'll regret, to give you your viral moment. And you know what the worst part is? I came here because I admired you. I came here because I thought we could have a real conversation about what it means to rebuild yourself after your world falls apart. But you don't actually care about that, do you? You just care about the spectacle." The audience was riveted. Some people with their hands over their mouths, others whispering to each other. Kelly's jaw clenched. "You don't get to come on my show and insult me, Valerie. You don't get to question my integrity just because you don't like my questions." "Your questions aren't the problem," Valerie said. "Your agenda is, you came into this with a script in your head about who I am and what you wanted me to say. And when I didn't perform the way you expected, you got hostile." "I'm not hostile," Kelly said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that you're acting like a victim when you're the one who chose to make your private life public. You can't put your story out there and then get mad when people engage with it." "Engaging with it would mean actually listening to what I'm saying," Valerie shot back. "What you're doing is trying to manipulate me into giving you better material. There's a difference, Kelly, and I think deep down you know that." Kelly looked at her producer again, then back at Valerie. "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I am frustrated, because I've seen you on other shows being candid and funny and open, and you come here and you're defensive and prickly. So yeah, maybe I'm pushing you because I thought we could have a real conversation instead of this carefully managed PR performance you're giving me." "A PR performance," Valerie repeated slowly. "Is that what you think this is? What else would you call it?" Kelly asked. "You've given me nothing but canned responses and outrage. Where's the woman who wrote that raw, honest book? Where's the woman who said she was done hiding and done apologizing? She's standing right in front of you," Valerie said quietly. "But apparently, honest doesn't mean what you think it means. You want me to be honest in a way that serves you, that makes good television, that gives you something to promote on social media. But my version of honesty includes boundaries. It includes not trashing people just because they hurt me. It includes recognizing that relationships are complicated and that nobody is entirely a villain or entirely a victim." Kelly rolled her eyes, and that gesture seemed to break something in Valerie. "You just rolled your eyes at me. Because you're being ridiculous," Kelly said flatly. "You're acting like I'm asking you to reveal state secrets when all I'm doing is following up on your own public statements. This isn't some gotcha moment, Valerie. This is basic interview protocol." "No," Valerie said, her voice suddenly very calm. "This is you being cruel. Maybe you don't see it that way. Maybe you think you're just doing your job. But what you're actually doing is trying to humiliate me on television because I'm not giving you what you want. And I'm done with it. So that's it." Kelly asked, her voice sharp. "You're just going to walk away because the interview got a little uncomfortable." "A little uncomfortable?" Valerie laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Kelly, you've spent the last several minutes trying to bully me into betraying my own values for your entertainment. That's not uncomfortable. That's unacceptable." "I'm not bullying you," Kelly said, but her voice lacked conviction now. "I'm interviewing you. There's a difference." "Keep telling yourself that," Valerie said, reaching for her microphone. "But I think we both know what's really happening here." Kelly's eyes widened as she realized Valerie was actually preparing to leave. "Wait, seriously, you're actually going to walk off my show?" "Yes, I am," Valerie said, her hands trembling slightly as she unclipped the mic pack from her waist. "Because I have enough self-respect to know when I'm not being treated with basic human decency." "Oh, come on," Kelly said, her voice taking on a pleading quality now. "Valerie, sit down. Let's reset. We can start over." Valerie shook her head. "I don't want to start over with you, Kelly. This whole thing has shown me exactly who you are as an interviewer, and I'm not interested in giving you another chance to demean me." The audience was gasping now, some people standing to get a better view. Kelly's producer was frantically gesturing from the wings, but Kelly seemed frozen between her instinct to smooth things over and her pride. "I never demeaned you," Kelly insisted. "You're being overly sensitive." And there it was. The words hung in the air, and Valerie's expression shifted from anger to something almost like pity. Overly sensitive. There it is. The classic dismissal. When a woman stands up for herself, when she refuses to be pushed around, she's being overly sensitive. "That's not what I meant," Kelly backtracked. You're overreacting to what was supposed to be a standard interview. A standard interview where you compared my memoir to a revenge tour," Valerie said, her voice steady now. "A standard interview where you accused me of exploiting my pain for book sales. A standard interview where you rolled your eyes at me when I tried to explain my boundaries. That's your standard, Kelly. That's what you consider professional." Kelly's face was red now. Whether from embarrassment or anger, it was hard to tell. "You know what? Fine. Walk off, go ahead. But don't act like you're taking some principled stand here. You're running away because I called you out on your contradictions." "My contradictions?" Valerie asked, pausing in her exit. "What contradictions? You want to be seen as this brave truth-teller who's reclaiming her narrative," Kelly said, the words tumbling out faster now. "But the second someone asks you a hard question, you fall apart. You want the credit for being honest without actually having to be vulnerable. You want to sell books about your pain, but you don't want to actually feel it in real time." The audience was silent, stunned. Valerie stood very still for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" Kelly challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've made a career out of playing the victim. First with your weight struggles, then with your divorce. Now with this interview, it's always someone else's fault with you, isn't it?" Valerie's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "Wow, you really believe that, don't you? You really think that's who I am?" Kelly seemed to realize she'd crossed a line, but she was too far in to back down now. "I think you've built an entire brand around being the wronged woman, and I think you're very invested in maintaining that narrative." "My brand," Valerie said softly. "You think my pain is a brand? You think my healing journey is a marketing strategy?" "Kelly, I genuinely feel sorry for you." "Don't feel sorry for me," Kelly snapped. "I'm not the one walking off a television show because I can't handle a few tough questions." "You're right," Valerie said. "You're the one asking those questions without any regard for the person sitting across from you. You're the one who's so desperate for a viral moment that you're willing to wound someone to get it. And you're the one who's going to have to watch this back and ask yourself if this is really who you want to be." Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but Valerie held up her hand. "I'm done, Kelly. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this interview, and I'm done pretending that what you're doing here is journalism. It's cruelty disguised as curiosity, and I won't participate in it anymore." "So you're just going to leave?" Kelly said, her voice breaking slightly. "You're going to walk out of here and make me look like the villain?" "I don't have to make you look like anything," Valerie said. "You did that all on your own. I came here in good faith. Kelly, I came here thinking we could have a meaningful conversation about resilience and growth and healing. But you didn't want that conversation. You wanted a circus act, and I'm not a clown." She set the microphone down on her chair with deliberate care. "I hope someday you understand why this went so wrong. I hope you take some time to reflect on the difference between being a tough interviewer and being a cruel one. Because right now, you're on the wrong side of that line, and I don't think you even realize it." Kelly's jaw worked, but no sound came out. The audience was completely silent now, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Valerie took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and looked directly at the camera. "To anyone watching this who's been through something similar, who's been pushed to defend themselves in a space that should have been safe, I see you. I understand. And I want you to know that walking away is not weakness. Sometimes, it's the strongest thing you can do." Then she turned and walked toward the stage exit. Kelly finally found her voice. "Valerie, wait, please, can we talk about this for a second?" But Valerie didn't turn around. She didn't pause. She simply kept walking, her head held high, until she disappeared into the wings. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs, some people applauding, others looking confused, many just sitting in stunned silence. Kelly stood alone on the stage, looking at the empty chair where Valerie had been sitting. She tried to compose herself, tried to find the professional mask she usually wore so well, but it was slipping. "Well," she said, her voice unsteady, "I guess that's where we're at." She looked at her producer, who was making cutting motions with her hand. "We're going to take a break," Kelly said to the camera, her smile forced and brittle. "We'll be right back." But as the camera pulled back and the stage lights dimmed for the commercial break, everyone knew they wouldn't be coming back from this. This wasn't the kind of television moment you could smooth over with a segment about cooking or a musical performance. This was raw, ugly, real, and it would be replayed on social media and discussed on talk shows for weeks to come. In the wings, Valerie was already removing her earpiece, already asking someone to call her car. Her hands were still shaking, but her eyes were dry and clear. She'd meant every word she said. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay in a space where you're not being treated with respect. Sometimes, walking away is the only option that preserves your dignity. And as the audience filed out, buzzing with excitement and disbelief, as the producers scrambled to figure out how to fill the rest of the show, as social media began to explode with hot takes and think pieces, one thing was clear. This was an interview that neither woman would ever forget, and neither would their audiences. It was a moment that exposed the sometimes ugly reality behind the polished facade of daytime television, where real people with real pain are expected to perform their trauma for entertainment. Valerie Bertinelli had refused to perform, and in doing so, she'd created the most memorable moment of her entire press tour, though not in the way anyone had anticipated. So what do you think? Was Valerie right to walk off, or did Kelly have a point about celebrities needing to answer tough questions about their public statements? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe because we're going to keep covering the moments that everyone is talking about. What would you have done in Valerie's position?